term was something that was incorporated again into the whole affair of the celebration of Christmas, yani by or the name Santa Claus being given to him was actually there was a Dutch individual, and he was actually a Dutch yani, a writer in a magazine and cartoonist, and he used to draw cartoons of Saint Nicholas, and he would call him Santa Claus, which is Dutch in origin. At that time, up until the 18th century, he was considered, or he was when he was drawn, he wasn't actually considered jolly at all. Yani they would depict him as a short man bent over with a long white beard, short man who used to wear a large black cloak. There was no red cloak, Ikhwan, as we see, and this nice rosy cheeked man. Rather, it was an old man who was bent over, and he was known to be quite harsh. In fact, he was known to discipline children. And not only known to discipline children, but he was known to beat the living daylights out of children. He was known for that. And that is why when you hear in the in the famous song, you better not pout, you better not cry. I'm telling you why. Why? Because Santa Claus is coming to town. Because if you were unruly, it was believed that Santa Claus will beat the living daylights out of you. And that was the picture and the image that was given to Santa Claus at that time. So how then did Santa Claus become this happy picture and figure that we now see them depicting him or as? Believe it or not, Ikhwan, it was Coca-Cola. It was Coca-Cola in the early 19th century, in the early 1900s. After they had, because it was by law, they had to remove, Coca-Cola originally had cocaine within it. It actually had a small trace of cocaine within it, and that's what gave it the kick. They replaced it with caffeine, it wasn't quite the same, and so their sales began to drop. And so they needed a marketing campaign that would bring them back into popularity and cause their sales to soar again. And so their marketing campaign revolved around Santa Claus and St. Nicholas. And so what they did was they did a series of cartoons depicting Santa Claus and St. Nicholas as a cheerful fellow, as a happy fellow, drinking, you guessed it, Coca-Cola. And that it was Coca-Cola, instead of this old, decrepit, horrible man that used to beat children, he is now a nice guy because he's drinking Coca-Cola. And so instead of the black cloak that he was ordinarily depicted in, they changed his black cloak for a Coca-Cola style red coat. And that was where the red garment came in and the happy, cheerful Santa Claus that we see. Similarly, as far as him being upon or having flying horses or what have you, or reindeers and what have you, that similarly came from that god that pagan god that was known for giving out gifts, that she was depicted as being an individual who used to fly in the sky on horses. And so they incorporated that into the whole image of Santa Claus, changed changed the horses for reindeers, and thus, Ikhwan, we had the birth of Santa Claus as we know him. And that, Ikhwan, is how Santa Claus and how he was incorporated into the whole of the Christian festivities and the celebration of Christmas. And when we analyze, Ikhwan, when we look really then at some of the origins, there is yet much more that could be said. When we look at some of the origins, Ikhwan, of how Christianity, how Christmas and the celebration of Christmas came about, then we see, Ikhwan, that its origin revolved around, Ikhwan, not having a robust principle that relates to bid'ah. If Christians had a robust principle connected to innovations, related to innovations, that would disallow and would be a barrier against any innovative practices being incorporated into their religion, then it is possible that their religion would have remained a lot purer than it is today. But because of the fact that they considered, and this is an issue, ikhwan, that our scholars discuss to this very day, an issue of our methodology, our manhaj, that the wasa'il al-da'wah, our scholars mention, that the wasa'il al-da'wah at-tawqifiyya, that is, the methods and the means of giving da'wah do not return back, ikhwan, to that which we believe would be beneficial, that which we believe will bring people in. But it returns back to text. Whatever was done by the Prophet ﷺ and by the companions, then, ayyuhal ikhwa, that is what is considered da'wah, a means of da'wah. As far as us incorporating that which is not from our deen into the practices or into our giving da'wah, then that, ikhwan, goes against our methodology and against our manhaj. And so singing songs and calling them, giving them Islamic names, Islamic nasheed, which is nothing, ikhwan, but songs. But because of the fact that we mentioned Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam here and there, and Allah here and there, and Islam here and there, it now is somehow accepted and somehow given credence and considered Islamic songs. And that is nothing, ikhwan, but bid'ah. It is nothing but bid'ah. In fact, ikhwan, rap and listening to R&B is less sinful than listening to Bangara. Is less sinful than listening to nasheeds. Less sinful. Both of them are sin in Tebi. Yeah, and you don't take from me that it's permissible to listen to Dr. Dre or any other rapper. Both of them are considered sins. But the sin of listening to regular music is less than the sin of listening to nasheeds. And the reason I mention that, ikhwan, is so that we understand the nature or the station of the evil of listening to nasheeds. Nasheed is bid'ah. Nasheed is bid'ah. While listening to music is dhanb, is sin. Sin is more enormous than bid'ah. Sin is greater and more tremendous in evil than sin. Afwan, bid'ah is greater in evil than sin. Bid'ah is greater in evil than sin. Anasheed are bid'ah. While listening to music is sin. And thus, ikhwan, that is not to bring down the station of listening to music. Rather, it is to put the place or to put the station of listening to nasheeds in its correct and proper place. If you understand that which is related to listening to music, then you'll know that anasheed are worse. And so, ikhwan, in Tebi, because these affairs are of the essence. Similarly, ikhwan, we see people using all types of practices when it comes to giving da'wah. Individuals using magic tricks. Magic, ikhwan, subhanallah al-azim, to give da'wah as a wasila or as a wasa'il of da'wah. Magic, ayyuhal ikhwa, as you all know, and there's no individual among us, I'm sure that will differ, will know that magic is kufr. Magic is kufr. And the magician, ikhwan, in the Islamic State is killed because of his shar. Now, some may argue and say we have magic that is sihr haqiqi, and then we have magic that is sihr takhyili, sihr haqiqi, true full-blown magic, with incorporating jinn and what have you. And then we have sihr takhyili, which is the sihr of the beguilement of the eyes. That the eyes are deceived into seeing that which isn't actually there. Another form of magic. And then we have what is known as khiffat yad. Khiffat yad is sleight of hand, trickery by way of sleight of hand. it is still likewise a major sin because of that which is in it from kadhib and deception and from ghish and from deceit and what have you. None of them, ikhwan, are permissible as a means of da'wah. Not one of them. And that, ikhwan, is something that is ajib, that we should have individuals who believe that it is possible and permissible to use those methods, and going as far as to say that individuals like Chris Angel and like this other guy, Dynamo, that these guys, what they're doing, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. Kef, ya Sheikh. Both of those individuals, ikhwan, being from among the evildoers and using, incorporating the usage of jinn in their magic. And that, ayyuhal ikhwa, then is something that we should be aware of. The incorporation of means and methods into the da'wah that Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger have not permitted. In the same way that we're speaking about Christmas and that which is crept into Christianity is the same thing, ikhwan, and the same issue that we should be aware of and afraid of may creep into our ranks, ikhwan, if we allow and if we have a weak stance in relation to individuals incorporating things into our religion. And that, ikhwan, is something that we should be fully aware of. There are certain things that have certain origins that if we know of them, then we would stay away from them. The croissant, mathalan. The croissant, the round pastry. The croissant. It was, my friend, she would say, sound good. The croissant in its origin, ikhwan, was something that was made after the Crusades, and after the kuffar had conquered the Muslims. They began to design and to make some pastry that was symbolic of our destructing the Islamic Ummah, our destroying the Islamic Ummah and our destruction of the Islamic Ummah. And so they made the croissant, which is a pastry in the shape of the crescent, which is actually in French what it represents, the crescent, and it's representative of the Muslimun. And so after the Crusades, they used to make those croissants and they would eat them. Now, if one knows of its origin, one may not be as hasty or as quick to eat it. If one knows that its origin returns back to that which is against our ummah and against the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then ikhwan, one may not, just as our knowledge of Christianity, we may not be as easygoing with Christianity, with Christmas, as we would be if we had no knowledge of the origins of Christmas. But if we understand, ikhwan, that Christmas returns back to shirk and back to the practices of the mushrikun and back to, ikhwan, practices that